Hi and welcome to another Excel interview question. I'm Steve, and in this video we're going to talk about how to create a table or how to insert a table into your spreadsheet. So let's dive over to our familiar example with our snow cone list here. And right now we just have this as a range of data, which basically just means a bunch of cells that are close to each other. But we want to turn it into a table because tables are more usable. And I'll go over a number of the advantages of tables, and this is what you would want to talk about if you're in an interview and tables come up, or even if they don't come up and you have a chance to bring up tables and why they're so great, because they really are. So to create a table, or rather I should say to turn this into a table, you just need to click anywhere within the data, and this works best if your data is all contiguous, and then you go to Insert and Table. Or you can also just be selected in your data and click Control T. And you'll notice it auto selects the area where it thinks your table is, and it looks like it got it right. And then it brings up this little dialog box. It says, where's the data? It's already selected it for us and it looks good, so we could leave that. And then it also asks, does your table have headers? And you want to have that checked if it does have headers, and it almost always will. If for some reason your table doesn't have headers, then you would deselect that. So there's your range. You can also do a custom selection. And the way you would do that is to either type in the coordinates here, or you click this little button and it'll say, okay, you're selecting here. And what I'm going to do is zoom out for a second, hopefully. No, actually, it's not going to let me. So let me do this. Let me zoom out first. Let me cancel this. I want to control and scroll and zoom out. So you can see this is our, let's go over here. This is our range that we're working with, but in this case we also have this one way out here, which I was using as an example. But let's say that I wanted this whole thing to be our range or our table. Then we could click here, go Control T, and then we could actually click this guy and then select this whole area like that. Now it is going to look at that as our table. Leave the table has headers checked and click OK. And now it's going to take that whole area, turn it into a table, and then you'll notice a new tab comes up in your ribbon, which is the Table Design tab, and this has a whole bunch of different options, including naming your table, which is always a good idea, and then some table styles. And for this instance, I'm going to scroll up and go to the blank or no style because I already have some formatting on there. But otherwise, you can go with any of the cool formatting options that they have. In fact, in this case, maybe that guy's not so bad, or this guy. Let's go with this one, actually. So you click on that, and you now have a named table. It's called Table 4. And we could go in and click this and change it if we wanted. But now we have some additional properties that go with this section of data that you didn't have before. Number one, you have built-in drop-downs, which allow you to sort and filter. Actually, it's not allowing me to filter because probably need to be on something with some data in it. So here you could filter again by the types of melons or do your sorting, which is built right into the table. You also have the automatic formatting, which is nice. And the other thing is this is dynamic. So if I wanted to add a additional entry below here, I can do that. Notice when I put the date in, it automatically formatted it and extended the table down. And you can tell where the end of the table is by looking right here. There's this little green arrow. And you can even see when I hover over it, it's basically offering me this arrow to say, hey, do you want to make your table bigger? And you can just left click on that and you can make your table bigger. You can go that way or you can go down. And then when you do that, you release and it expands your table. But as you noticed before, when I was up here, just by typing on the row below the table, it incorporates that into the table. And now if I use this table in formulas or for references or if I'm sorting and filtering, it will incorporate that whole table, and I don't have to kind of redo references from other formulas or other worksheets and things like that, which is awesome. And just a couple quick thoughts and reminders. When you have a table, if you're selected in that table, you will have the table design option up here. If you're selected out of the table, that goes away. But that is full of tools that you can use to do modifications. For instance, if you click here, it will bold the first row. Lots of different things. You can do total row. It'll put a total at the bottom, which is very valuable. A lot of things you can do with tables that I won't get into because this is just kind of a basics lecture to get you familiar so that you can do well in an interview. But one thing that you might want to know, and this would be something, if you told an interviewer this, you would sound like you knew what you were doing, is that there's this little button up here, convert to range. And this is basically, you decided you didn't want this to be a table, you want to go back to a range. Well, if I just click on this right now, then all of this formatting is going to basically be locked in, and it's going to be difficult to modify it. So to save yourself a lot of trouble when converting a table back to a range, you want to go back up to this none selection. I mean, unless you wanted to have that formatting locked in, but it's usually more trouble than it's worth. So you go to none, and then you say convert to range. It's going to ask you if you want to do that, and you say yes. And you'll notice the table design tab went away. The drop down filter and sort tools went away. And we're back to just a normal range of cells. No longer dynamic, no longer has all the fun and magic of a table. And just to recap some of the advantages of using a table, we already talked about the main ones, which is that it's easy to update or add to a table. The other one is that it just makes a very uniform set of data. It's well organized into that table structure. The third one is, of course, the formatting that you can change on the fly. And I mean, as easy as it is to create a table, it's just so easy. It's just like that. Snag your stuff, click OK. There's your table, and you can just click through and change your formatting in so many different ways. And mine's a little bit ugly with those weird headers, but you get the point. It's very customizable, and you can scroll down through a bunch of different designs. And we already talked about it being able to expand, but one nice feature that is really convenient is you clicked in the last column of the last row and you hit tab. You'll notice it goes to the next line, which isn't what Excel would normally do. Normally, if you are here and you hit tab, it's going to go to this cell. But it knows that you're in a table, and it knows that you want to add another line. So when you hit tab here, it just goes straight to the next line, and it builds that row into your table. So it's just easy to do data entry that way. Oh, another thing I didn't mention is that the column headers are always visible. So we used an example before where we did freeze pane and we locked the top row. Well, with a table, it automatically does that for you, and I'll show you what I mean. As I scroll down, see, I've just scrolled a little ways down to here. You notice that instead of having the column letters, the column headers pop up into that space and they stay there. So no matter how far I scroll down within the table, that's always going to be showing. Another just awesome benefit of it. I mentioned the totals button or totals row, which is really convenient because all you do is the click of a button and it pops in a totals row for you. And the totals row also will only respond to whatever you have showing if you filter something. So if I filter the price and I say I only want the $3 prices, click OK, it filters out just the items that were $3 and then updates that price accordingly, which is just one of those things that can save you a ton of time. You also have an option here down in the totals row, which is really sweet, where you click on this drop down and you can change what you're asking for. So if we want the let's say the average of these numbers, well, let's say the count. We want the total of how many are $3. We click on count, and you see it adds up the rows, and we have 6 of those entries, and it gives us a total of 6. And if we refilter this and we add in the $3 and the $4 items, we click OK, and it'll automatically refilter it and recount it. So that's totally huge. And the final thing I'll mention, which is important, is if you were to create a graph or chart based on this data and have that chart displaying down here, then whenever you update this, add to it, whatever, if say I change this, this is no longer watermelon, a mistake was made, Jane actually ordered orange, so we change that and we change the price, that will be reflected in your chart without having to rebuild the chart, which is totally amazing. So I could probably go on for days about the benefits of tables, but I think that will give you a solid handle of how to talk about tables. And honestly, any interviewer worth their salt will probably be quite impressed if you can talk intelligently about tables, because they are such a game changer when it comes to making your data easier to sort, easier to format, easier to use, etc., etc. So I hope that was helpful. Thanks so much for watching. Check out my full course in the description if you want to learn more. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and at the very least, check out the next video in this playlist, because I'm going to keep teaching you about how to ace those interview questions.